Hey guys, we are back with another video today talking again Mythic Legions, but we're not doing a review. This is not about any one specific figure. This is a video that I've kind of thought about doing, and it's not exactly what I had intended to do. This is more of a sort of just discussion, I suppose, on the state of Mythic Legions and the aftermarket. How do you get started in this line, and just what in the world is going on with pricing on these figures? Why are some of them so expensive? Why are some a month's rent for some people? They are crazy, and they're just going to get worse probably. So there have been two events lately that happened this past week regarding some sales of older figures, basically a large group of older figures that were sold all at once, individually, but all in one go. Two different places, Roma Collectibles and then myactionfigurecustoms.com, both had sales back to back with figures that you rarely see on eBay even just sort of generally looking every day. Some of these, you never see these figures. And some of the prices were probably eye-opening for a lot of folks, myself included, because I didn't expect some of them to go nearly as high as they did. There was one figure in particular that went for $500, if that lets you know kind of where things are going. So there's been a lot of discussion on what in the world is going on here. Why are figures so expensive? And I mean, I think it's pretty obvious why some figures are so expensive, but I want to talk about it and give an idea of what we're seeing, where things are going, and if you're new to Mythic Legions, what you should expect. Because it goes without saying, every single time I do a video on a Mythic Legions figure, there are always questions of, how did you get this? Where did it come from? Why didn't I know about it? How much does it cost? Why are these so crazy expensive? And I think the answers are pretty easy, but maybe not necessarily answers people want to hear. So let's talk real quick about Mythic Legions and just sort of how they all kind of come and go. So we got the original 1.0 Kickstarter wave, which was years ago at this point, not years and years ago, but a number of years ago. This line is certainly still, it seems like it's incredibly old because there's so much stuff right now, but it's truly not a very old line by any stretch of the imagination. So there was the original Kickstarter, like 3 dozen figures and a few weapons packs. We've had a few other smaller lines like Mythic Legions 1.5, Mythic Legions Covenant of Shadow, Mythic Legions All-Stars 1, All-Stars 2, Colosseum, the larger Advent of Decay line, which I think is where a lot of folks really started to notice that this line was getting kind of ramped up, because the Kickstarter was not only a humongous success, but that particular wave really, I mean, it was huge. It was 40 plus figures. It was massive. It was the biggest toy haul I've ever had in my entire life. It was one massive mail day. And then even after that, we've still had a number of other waves. So there's going to be an All-Stars Wave 3 coming. We've got the Aether wave. We've got Siege at Bjorngar. We've got Wasteland, Soul Spiller, stuff like that. So there's a ton of different waves. But there's one key thing that always takes place with these particular waves. With the Kickstarter, it's getting in on the Kickstarter. And to my knowledge, they're done doing Kickstarters. I don't think they need to do that anymore. So they've had a Kickstarter for 1.0, and then they had the Kickstarter for Advent of Decay. But there's always been other pre-orders for those other smaller waves. The key to this entire line, and this is what I always say to people who are just thinking about getting in, if you want to just get in and don't really care about the old stuff, you've got to do the pre-orders. There is no other way. If you do wait, you might luck in on the in-stock sale, but that's still a gamble. You don't know what you're actually going to get. Is the site going to crash on me? Are there going to be too many people? If you get in on the pre-order, you get in. You get exactly what you want. So you have to start there. You have to always start with the pre-order or the Kickstarters in those cases, because you're going to get exactly what you ask for. The other option is to go through, say, Big Bad Toy Store, because they always have stuff up for sale after those pre-orders. They are obligated to charge a higher price point. So Legions start for your standard named characters, 35 bucks. Big Bad Toy Store is going to be 50 bucks each. You're already more than double price of an average retail store figure. So you're talking 2.5 times the price of a Marvel Legends figure if you had to go that route. So we already know that just at the base level, the aftermarket price for a Mythic Legions figure is at default set to $50, just because nobody's ever going to sell it any less than that, because they've already got an actual major retailer as their competition. So I can't hammer it home enough. If when the next pre-order comes up, if you are interested, you absolutely have to be in there. You have to lock yourself into that pre-order, or you've already kind of missed out from the get-go. So we know that at the time there was, of course, an easy way to buy into this, and going forward there is always an easy way to buy into this because it's always a pre-order system. But why does that translate to there being so many sought after and so many rare and so many expensive figures? Well, it comes down to, granted, a few different things, I think, but I think it's all pretty simple when you sort of just kind of break this down. So the first wave is the big wave. For the overwhelming majority of folks, that is the group of figures that people truly need the most of. If you're trying to complete a larger set, those are the figures you're going to have the most trouble with. There are a few outliers from, say, Colosseum or from 1.5 or Covenant of Shadow, things like that, but the overwhelming majority of folks are probably going to have the biggest trouble with that original wave. And it comes down to a few things. Well, one, how many people truly knew about that Kickstarter? How many people truly knew? Because it only achieved just over $400,000. Even the second one, the Advent of Decay Kickstarter, didn't break $1 million, and it was huge by comparison. Let's just take a step back though, and Todd McFarlane's one Spawn figure Kickstarter has, what, $2 million right now? So it's a huge disparity between how many people bought into that Kickstarter. It is an infinitesimally small amount of people. So we know that just at the get-go, there are not enough of these figures to compensate a market that is just clamoring for these figures. And we do know a little bit of some insight in terms of how many figures might actually be out there, because at times the Horsemen actually use the case packs to ship larger orders. I know when I got my Advent of Decay Kickstarter order, and half of it was in the box for a Romulus case pack. So it told me right out the gate that there were 48 case packs of 24 figures, which is not that many figures when you think about it. That is, what, just over 1,000 figures for Romulus, who is now going for over $200 as of this week's ongoing. So if you think about it that way, there was not a lot of people at the time that Mythic Legions was new, and there aren't enough figures as a result now. So you can easily see why when a lot of folks are just jumping in on this and they see, I want this awesome dwarf, or I want this crazy red colored skeleton that I personally have been looking for forever until now, I want that, and they can't find it. So of course the price is going to be inflated. When somebody realizes they can sell that figure because there are none on the market, the price is just going to skyrocket. It's a recipe for, I'm not going to say disaster, but it's a recipe for prices to just creep higher and higher and higher until figures get reissued. But do those reissues actually fix the problem? Do they help? I would say it's a resounding no, at least not in the long term. In the short term, sure. Folks can get in, you get your pre-order, you get your Big Bad Toy Store order maybe, or you get an in-stock order when the Horsemen manage to get those sales out, or you just catch one on Big Bad Toy Store as they're kind of selling through what stock they do have, just using them as an example. But this guy is a great poster child for the fact that it truly, in the end, it all just goes back to normal. So Atlas the Conqueror is a 1.0 figure. He was pretty popular, and he is one of the larger named characters. He's a pretty pivotal figure in the Mythic Legions mythology in the story, so he's important for folks to have him on their shelf. And he was in All-Stars 2, he came back, and people got him, and people were happy with him for a while, and his price was okay. He doesn't have an okay price anymore. He has a $200 price now. Again, he is still one of those figures that you're not going to find a number of auctions out there for him. You're not going to find people selling him every other day. He's going to be one of those figures that people wanted him, they got their order in, and they kept him. And if people want to sell him, they're going to be able to dictate the price because there aren't any out there. So even with there being reissues, the stock, the availability for the market simply isn't there. So ultimately, when it comes down to making a buying guide or giving people advice for this line, it's honestly kind of difficult because it comes down to a couple things. And the main one is, what kind of collector do you want to be when it comes to Mythic Legions? Do you just want to be a go-forward collector who gets the stuff that's here and now and just goes forward? If you do, that's easy. I already talked about it. Do your pre-orders. If you get your pre-orders in, you're golden. There is no worrying. And you always have a tremendous amount of time. A month and a half, and then they always extend it. Even if you wait until the last minute, they're bound to give you a few more minutes, generally speaking. You always have time to get those pre-orders in. Of course, you do have to pay up front, but you always have time to get those orders in. And if you got them, you got them. You're going to get your stuff. Now, if you want to go backwards, that's where things do get a little more tricky and interesting because there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Price, rarity, how many of these figures actually exist still. And that's one thing that we truly don't know, because of course only so many have been made, but Mythic Legions is a very customizer friendly user base. How many have been cannibalized? How many of those older figures were used to make something else? How many figures just simply don't exist in their base form anymore? So the actual pool of figures is even less, I'm sure, than what we expect them to be, just because of a number of things like that. Of course, price is always the issue. They are really expensive, as we saw in the recent Roma sale and the myactionfigurecustoms.com sale. They are expensive, but at the same time, there is no lack of people paying for that, because all of these sales were gone in seconds, minutes at most. Minute at most. I was watching both of them and they went very, very quickly. But that also is only one part of it, because just because they are expensive doesn't mean you're going to find them. There are figures that I would love to get a hold of, but I don't know where to look to find them. You're not going to find hardly any of these older figures on eBay often, or really ever. One of the figures that I personally have been looking for a long time, that I did actually buy in one of these ridiculous sales, was the Clavian figure, the red skeleton. I've wanted him for a really long time, and I finally had a chance, had two chances. I missed him on the Roma sale by, I don't know, half a second, and then I got him on the myactionfigurecustoms.com sale. But those were the only figures that I have seen up for grabs in a long time. I've either not seen them because I just haven't seen the sales, or they just haven't gone up. There are none on eBay, not even sold listings. It's not an active listing situation. There are none. There have not been any recently for sale. So it's a situation where you're not likely going to actually find these, and therein lies the problem. If you can't find them, then when one does come up, you're gonna be paying top dollar, unless it's a friend or if someone's truly just trying to be a good Samaritan, which, let's be honest, it's not likely going to happen. Not that the community isn't friendly or good to deal with, but it's our collection. Someone's going to part with their figure that is incredibly rare, you're going to be paying for it. So I don't know if there's truly a fix here. You know, refresh the whole line, it's not going to happen. But this is something that I've just kind of wanted to talk about. And it's hard, again, to make a buying guide or any kind of real advice, because going backwards is almost not an option for so many people. And I made a post on Twitter about this, and that was the main answer, is that's exactly the reason why I don't buy this line, because so many figures look so cool, but there's no option to buy them. Or I can't afford $200, $300, $500 for some figures. And I'm not knocking anyone. I'm not knocking the Horseman's business model. I'm not knocking the collectors that do pay that price. I'm not knocking the sellers for that, because it's just the market. The market dictates the price, and there is no supply for this, I don't know, crazy astronomical demand. So hopefully this wasn't the most downer style video I've ever done. I probably sound very negative here. Don't take it that way. This was just a, here is what is going on with Mythic Legions. The prices are, they're kind of out of control, but at the same time, it's because there is such an influx of buyers, an influx of people who want this stuff and who only have one shot to get them, two shots to get them. You're not going to have the opportunity to buy these every day. So let me guys know what you think. Let me know what your opinions are on these sales. If you were, you know, in any of those sales, I'd love to know what your thoughts are and how those were handled, what happened, what the prices were, and what you think about any options for people who want to try to get into this line, because let's be honest, it's not easy.